Hi, welcome to our channel where we share the most intriguing stories. Moving to Everhill Gardens was supposed to be a dream. Peaceful streets, perfect lawns, and a fresh start. But behind the manicured hedges lurked a neighbor from hell. When packages vanished and suspicions grew, I set a trap. What followed? Justice, revenge, and one hell of a showdown. If you asked me 2 years ago what I wanted out of life, I would have said peace. A backyard with enough space for a smoker and a play set, and a mailbox that didn't get nailed by teenagers with baseball bats. That was the dream. And for a while, I had it. My wife and I had saved for years, living off one income while I transitioned into full-time remote electrical engineering work. When we finally bought our house in Everhill Gardens, it felt like stepping into the chapter of life where things calmed down. Everhill Gardens was one of those communities that looked like a postcard. Perfect lawns, hedges trimmed like geometry projects, and neighbors who waved but never asked questions. Of course, it also had an HOA. I knew that going in, thought I could tolerate the usual nonsense. I didn't count on Karen Lorraine. Karen was the HOA president. Imagine if a country club manager got reincarnated as a middle-aged control freak with a Stepford wife smile and the soul of a DMV supervisor. She introduced herself to us within hours of moving in. Knocked on the door holding a clipboard and a fake-ass welcome basket full of crackers and judgment. She opened with, "We're so glad to have a young family join the community." Just a few small things to go over. Our mailbox guidelines, curtain visibility compliance, and fence stain tone code. Nothing major. I should have known. The mailbox apparently was too industrial. The curtains in our bedroom, visible for maybe 10 seconds a day as the sun shifted, were an eyesore against the neighborhood's aesthetic unity. And the fence I spent 2 weekends staining. The wrong shade of brown. I remember standing there, holding the HOA's approved color palette, like it was a religious text written by Satan himself, realizing I'd made a tactical error, but I played nice. For a while. Things turned sour after the community meeting, where Karen tried to push a 35% increase in HOA dues to fund what she called a recreational beautification initiative. Translation, she wanted a pergola, a new parking lot for her, tennis circle, and more control. When it came time for the vote, I publicly declined. Not rudely, just enough to be heard, enough to be remembered. That's when the silent war started. It was little things at first. A citation for overgrown grass the day after a thunderstorm. A warning about temporary toys left unattended. Referring to my kid's bucket on the lawn. Even an official letter implying my recycling bin wasn't closed properly on collection day. I started taking pictures of everything. I documented my yard like it was a crime scene. My wife said I was being paranoid. I wanted to agree with her. Then, one day, I noticed a package missing. It was a small Amazon box, replacement fuses, and a few components I needed for a side project. Not valuable. I figured it was a missed delivery or porch pirate. Nothing unusual, but it kept happening. Another package and another. A charging station for my wife's laptop. A box of toddler clothes from her mom. Then a toolkit I'd ordered for an install I had coming up. Gone. I checked the camera on my doorbell. Cheap model, not ideal angle. It showed the package arriving, sure, but then, nothing. No clear footage of anyone taking it. Just a blind spot thanks to the wrought iron overhang on the porch that created a perfect crescent of darkness during daytime deliveries. It was frustrating, but I still held on to the hope it was a fluke. Maybe the delivery guy left it at the wrong house. Maybe someone down the street was confused. Maybe I wasn't being targeted. But when the expensive inverter parts disappeared, nearly $8,000 worth, I stopped making excuses. And Karen? Oh, Karen stayed busy. She sent another compliance notice that same week, citing my mailbox stability. Apparently, it leaned half a degree to the left. I started to wonder if she sat in her car with a protractor. I didn't have proof. I didn't have footage, I didn't have a suspect, but I had a sinking feeling in my gut that all pointed in the same direction. Karen. It only got worse from there. At first, the missing packages were sporadic, just enough to keep me second-guessing myself. But once the inverter shipment vanished, something in me snapped. I couldn't afford to keep pretending this was random. These weren't porch pirates combing the neighborhood. No one was dumb enough to hit the same house over and over unless they had a reason to think no one would stop them. I called Amazon, then UPS, then FedEx. I filed claims, started tracking numbers like a lunatic, contacted customer support so many times I had reps remembering my name. Some packages got refunded, some didn't. Some were marked as delivered to front door with photo evidence. But the photos always showed the same thing: a cardboard box sitting innocently by my doormat, time-stamped, smiling at the camera like it was mocking me. I even considered that maybe it was a neighbor, just some opportunist who saw a weak spot. But my neighbors weren't close. Nobody in Everhill Gardens really was, except Karen. She had her tentacles in everyone's business, and she was always around. I'd seen her car cruise past my house slowly during delivery hours. Once I caught her parked at the corner with a pair of binoculars in her lap. When she noticed me looking, she pretended to be adjusting her mirror, like I was born yesterday. The packages kept disappearing. An iPad for my wife's birthday, gone. A set of over-ear monitors I'd saved up for, never arrived. A limited edition tool set I'd pre-ordered months ago, vanished. At some point, I stopped bothering to report the losses. What was the point? Even the police gave me a half-hearted "we'll make a note of it" when I walked into the station with a stack of shipping confirmations and delivery screenshots. No footage, no fingerprints, no suspect, no crime, apparently. By the time the running tally crossed $30,000, I wasn't even angry anymore. I was cold, methodical, and paranoid as hell. I started cataloging every delivery, took photos the second boxes arrived, created spreadsheets of arrival windows, asked neighbors casually about their deliveries, pretending I was just making conversation. Everyone had lost something recently, but no one seemed to think it was connected. A baby monitor here, a pair of hiking boots. Nothing big enough to trigger suspicion, just small leaks in the neighborhood's trust. Karen, of course, kept up appearances. She smiled that thin, condescending smile every time we crossed paths. She even had the gall to ask if we were adjusting well to community expectations. The real kicker came when she left a note on my door suggesting I consider a parcel locker service, given the increase in package theft in the area. I laughed out loud when I read that one. She knew. She had to know I suspected her. She wanted me to know. That was the game. I upgraded my doorbell camera, installed a second angle from the garage, but the footage kept coming up empty. The angle still missed most of the porch due to the damn decorative arch. I thought about mounting a camera in a tree, running a line from the attic, maybe hiding a motion sensor in the mailbox, but I knew I was chasing shadows. Until the day I decided to run a test. I set a decoy package on the porch, just an empty box, taped up to look legit. Then I went for a walk around the block, pushing my kid in his stroller. I circled back 20 minutes later. Box was gone. No delivery truck, no notification, no visitors. It had simply disappeared. I checked the cameras, nothing. Same blind spot, same smug silence. That night, I sat in the dark at my kitchen table, reviewing footage, rewatching timestamps, trying to will the culprit into existence. I didn't get them that night, but I was done being reactive. It happened on a Tuesday morning. Gray skies, drizzle, not unusual for the outskirts of Seattle. I'd taken my son for our usual walk through the neighborhood, letting him throw pebbles into puddles while I half-heartedly waved to passing neighbors who barely looked up from their phones or lawn work. Nothing felt different. But something was about to break. As we turned the corner back toward our house, I noticed someone waving from an upper window across the street. It was Mrs. Crosby. Linda Crosby, technically. I always called her Miss Linda in my head. 70-something, sharp as hell, always wore a blue visor and garden gloves, even when she wasn't gardening. Her house sat on a slight elevation, second story perfectly aligned with my front porch. I'd never thought much of it, until that morning. She opened her window and called out, her voice surprisingly strong. "Brandon, got a minute?" I nodded, gave my son a juice pouch to occupy him, and made my way across the street. Linda met me at her front door with a look I hadn't seen before. It wasn't neighborly concern. It was uncertainty, like she was balancing on the edge of a decision she wasn't sure she should make. "I don't usually get involved," she started, "but I saw something that might explain your trouble with those missing boxes." I blinked. "You saw something?" She led me upstairs to her bedroom, apologizing for the mess. There was none, and walked me to the window. The view was perfect. From that height and angle, my porch was fully visible. No blind spots, no shadows, clear line of sight. She pulled out her phone and tapped through her gallery. Then she handed it to me. "Watch this one." I hit play. The video was grainy, sure, and a little shaky, Zoomed in from distance, probably handheld, but it was undeniable. The timestamp read last Friday, around 11 in the morning. I saw my own porch, a box sitting squarely by the door. Then, about 20 seconds in, a white Lexus SUV pulled up slowly along the curb. The driver's door opened, and out stepped Karen. Hair perfect, phone in one hand, glancing around like a raccoon casing a trash can. She walked up to the porch, scooped the package like it belonged to her, turned back toward the street, and paused. She looked both ways, then got into her car and drove off. No hesitation, no shame, just business as usual. I stared at the screen in disbelief, even though my gut had already told me 100 times what my brain refused to admit until now. It was her. It had always been her. I didn't know what to do, Linda said softly. I didn't want to accuse anyone without being sure, but when it kept happening, I figured it was time. I didn't say anything at first. My hands were sweating. My heart pounded like I'd just finished a sprint. I replayed the video twice more, memorizing every movement. Her gait, her smug posture, the way she barely even looked at the package, like she knew no one would stop her. Finally, I looked up at Linda. "You're an angel," I said. "Seriously." "Thank you." She smiled, a little embarrassed. "Just figured you should know. I've seen her do it more than once, but that's the only time I managed to get it on video. Maybe next time I'll borrow my grandson's GoPro." I laughed, but it came out hollow. My mind was already moving 100 miles an hour. This wasn't just about stolen boxes anymore. This was personal. This was war. I asked if she'd be willing to back up the video and keep it between us for now. She agreed without hesitation, even offered to help in any way she could. As I walked back to my house, my son humming nonsense in his stroller, I felt the fog in my brain start to clear. I had a face. I had a video. I had a witness. And now, I had a plan. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, watching shadows crawl along the walls. My wife asked if something was wrong. I told her I was working through an engineering issue. That wasn't a lie. It just wasn't the kind that needed a soldering iron. I got up around 3 in the morning, slipped into my home office, and opened a blank document. I titled it, Operation Bait and Snap. First order of business, build the bait. I ordered 4 packages, all with real tracking numbers, shipped to my home, timed over the next 2 weeks. Inside the boxes, a carefully curated selection of surprises. The first held nothing but styrofoam and fishing weights. The second was rigged with a cheap GPS tracker I found on clearance. The third box, my personal favorite, contained a sealed medical waste container I got from a vet tech friend, filled with dog feces marked for biohazard disposal. And the fourth, a Bluetooth tracker synced to my phone and hidden inside an old drill case that rattled convincingly. I wasn't done. Next, I talked to Linda. She was more than willing to help and, frankly, a little excited. Said it gave her something to do besides yell at squirrels. Together, we positioned a GoPro on her upstairs bedroom windowsill, hidden behind a fake potted plant. It had a clear line of sight to my porch. No shadows, no blind spots, just full frontal justice. Then I called the police. I scheduled an appointment. Not a 911 emergency, not a wild accusation. Just a calm professional sit-down with a community liaison officer named Patterson. I showed him the footage from Linda's phone. I laid out the timeline, the losses, the suspicions. I didn't push for action. I just wanted him to know what I was planning, and that I was giving the thief a final filmed opportunity to incriminate themselves. To my surprise, Patterson was receptive. Said porch piracy had gotten worse lately, and he liked having cooperative citizens with actual brains. He agreed to have a patrol car nearby during the next drop. Everything was set. I kept up appearances around Karen, waved when I passed her, nodded politely at community events. I even let her drone on at a monthly HOA meeting about xeriscaping regulations without once grinding my teeth. Every second of calm felt like sharpening a blade. Then the deliveries began. The first bait box arrived on a Wednesday morning. I placed it on the porch and waited. Hours passed. Nothing. I retrieved it that evening, untouched. The second came Friday. This one vanished within 20 minutes. Linda texted, "Got her. Full video. Lexus again. Looks bored." I watched the footage that night with a glass of whiskey in hand. Karen hadn't even bothered to wear a hat. She looked like someone picking up dry cleaning. Efficient, routine, clinical. The GPS showed the box bouncing around for half a day before it stopped moving near her house. just far enough away that I couldn't claim anything concrete. Not yet. By the time the third bait package arrived, the one with the biological surprise, I was ready. Police had been notified. Linda had her camera rolling. I set the box on the porch around 10:30 and took my son to the park like any other day. I remember sitting on a bench trying to look normal, refreshing the GPS tracker on my phone every 30 seconds like a man checking fantasy football scores. At 11:35, it moved. I felt my chest tighten. By 11:41, I got the text. She's got it. Headed back to car. Officers moving in. My palms were sweating. My hands shook. I knew I wasn't the one being arrested, but I felt like I'd detonated something. I didn't rush home. I didn't want to interfere. Whatever was happening would be on body cam and Linda's footage. I trusted both more than I trusted my nerves. What mattered was this. The trap was sprung. And Karen. She had no idea what she'd just walked into. When I got home, Karen's car was gone. So were the flashing lights. The neighborhood looked exactly the same as when I'd left it. Clean, orderly, calm, like nothing had happened. But the silence was loaded now. Like a room where someone's just broken a glass, and everyone's pretending not to notice the shards on the floor. I didn't go inside right away. I stood on the porch, stared at the bare spot where the box had been, and just breathed. The air felt lighter, sharper. Inside, my wife met me in the kitchen with wide eyes and a phone in her hand. They arrested her, she said. Right on the street, in front of the Simmons kids. I blinked. How do you know that? Linda. She sent me a video. I took the phone, hit play. There it was. Karen standing next to her Lexus with a package in hand. 2 officers calmly approaching. She tried her usual act, waving a hand like she was swatting away a gnat. This is mine, she insisted. It was misdelivered. I already contacted UPS. One officer asked to see the shipping label. She hesitated. The second officer opened the box, then recoiled. Even from across the street, Linda's camera caught the moment. Karen's face twisting in horror as she realized she'd just handed a literal box of feces to the cops. I heard one officer say, "Well, this isn't yours, unless you ordered hazardous waste." Then the other one, "You're under arrest for theft of mail and suspicion of multiple prior incidents. Please put your hands behind your back." Karen didn't take it well. She slapped at one of them, shrieked something about harassment, then tried to shove past. Bad move. They brought her down fast. Linda's camera shook as she gasped, but she kept filming like a champ. Karen hit the pavement hard, shrieking like a banshee, her yoga pants riding halfway up her thighs as one officer pinned her and cuffed her hands behind her back. The video ended with a perfect shot of the cops loading her into the cruiser while her car sat idling like a witness, too afraid to move. I watched it twice. That night, Patterson called me directly. He was professional, but I could tell he was impressed. "Mr. Reed," he said, "we've formally charged Ms. Lorraine with felony mail theft. That box today, that's just the start. We've opened a broader investigation." I asked what that meant. "Well, seems like you weren't the only victim," he said. "Now that we've got footage and an arrest, other neighbors are coming forward. People who thought they just lost stuff. Turns out they were robbed." The next morning, I saw it firsthand. Our local HOA Facebook page, which I usually avoided like the plague, lit up like a Christmas tree. Neighbors were posting stories, timestamps, old order confirmations. Someone even shared a photo from last year of Karen walking away from their porch holding a small box. At the time, they'd assumed it was a delivery mix-up. One woman posted that her husband's insulin had gone missing. Another guy said his kid's graduation gift never showed. A couple who lived 3 houses down said they lost 3 Amazon packages in 1 month and thought it was just porch pirates. I dropped a comment under one of the threads. "Might want to talk to Officer Patterson. He's collecting reports." That post got over 60 likes in under an hour. Karen's little empire was crumbling. Later that day, the HOA board, yes, the same board Karen used to run like a dictatorship, sent out an emergency email. They were suspending Karen Lorraine from all HOA duties pending investigation, and a special vote would be held to determine leadership restructuring. Translation: she was toast. I watched the neighborhood finally start to wake up. People talked to each other. They checked in. Someone offered to help Linda with her trash bins. It was like the whole block had snapped out of a trance. And in the middle of it all, I stood quietly, holding my son in one arm and a cup of coffee in the other, watching the house across the street. Karen's Lexus never moved that day. The real surprise wasn't that Karen had been stealing from me. It was how long she'd been getting away with it. By the end of the week, the police confirmed what I already suspected. She hadn't just hit my house. She'd hit nearly a dozen others. Quietly, systematically, over the course of almost a year. Small stuff, mostly, until me. Prescription refills, headphones, clothes, tech. A few $100 here, a few hundred there. Just enough that most people chalked it up to delivery issues. She was careful, until she wasn't. Officer Patterson told me the current estimate of total loss in the neighborhood had climbed past $53,000. And that didn't count whatever the cops found in her garage, which apparently looked like a back alley flea market. Electronics, unopened packages, even toys with gift receipts still attached. She'd kept a lot of it. Some she sold, some she re-gifted, according to one officer. The gall. By then, the media had picked it up. First local news, then regional. HOA president arrested in porch theft ring, one headline said. Another, community leader busted for grand larceny in quiet suburb. They used her HOA portrait, a perfect over-filtered picture of her standing in front of a manicured bush, all pearls and power blazer. They didn't show the mugshot. Yet. The HOA, desperate to save face, acted fast. Karen was permanently expelled from the board in a unanimous emergency vote. No one even showed up to defend her. Her allies melted into the background like cockroaches when the lights came on. A temporary president was appointed, some guy named Dale who seemed confused that he even got nominated. Frankly, I think he was just the first one who hadn't posted anything embarrassing on Facebook in the last year. What made it all hit home, though, was the knock on my door the following Tuesday. It was a young woman, mid-20s, sharp suit, clipboard. She introduced herself as assistant to the county prosecutor. She asked if I'd be willing to provide an official statement, possibly testify, and help establish the scope of Karen's pattern of behavior. Absolutely, I said. Just tell me where and when. She smiled. We'll be in touch soon. And thank you. This was one of the cleanest setups we've ever seen. She didn't have to say it, but I heard it between the lines. We'd built a case that wasn't going away. And I wasn't done. With Linda's blessing and a few more neighbors on board, I reached out to a civil attorney. I wanted restitution. Criminal charges were great, but they didn't replace $30,000 in vanished equipment and gifts. I wasn't looking to ruin Karen financially. I just wanted what was mine. And if a lawsuit helped keep her from slipping through the cracks, even better. We met at a law office downtown, the kind with frosted glass and bottled water that tasted like someone whispered lemon at it. I laid out everything: packages, costs, video evidence, police cooperation, HOA harassment history. The lawyer, a brisk woman named Andrea Brooks, tapped her pen for a few minutes and said, "We can absolutely pursue damages, especially with the arrest and physical evidence, but I'd recommend we go bigger. Class action." A class action. It hadn't occurred to me before, but as she laid it out, it made perfect sense. If Karen had victimized more than a dozen people, we could come together. We could make it formal. She wouldn't just be some disgraced community leader with a criminal record. She'd owe us. Linda was the first to sign on, then the couple down the street. By Friday, we had 9 plaintiffs. The legal paperwork was in motion. I found myself sleeping better that week than I had in months. Maybe it was the justice. Maybe it was the quiet. Or maybe it was just that, for the first time in a long time, I knew Karen wasn't watching. The trial began 4 weeks later. Karen pled not guilty, of course. Her attorney, a sour-faced man who looked like someone had shaved a badger and put it in a suit, tried to argue that the video footage was circumstantial, that the packages could have been hers, that my neighbor's camera violated her expectation of privacy. He even had the gall to suggest that Linda's age might make her an unreliable witness. Linda, bless her, showed up to court in a cobalt blue pantsuit, hair pinned up like she was testifying before Congress. When they tried to rattle her during cross-examination, she smiled sweetly and asked the defense attorney if he needed her to zoom in on the license plate frame that read, "Proud to steal from engineers." Okay, maybe not in those words, but that's how it felt. The prosecutor, meanwhile, had done her homework. They didn't just bring my case. They brought everyone's. One by one, my neighbors testified. Missing packages, strange sightings, suspicious delivery reroutes. The GPS tracker footage was entered into evidence. So were the GoPro videos. And, of course, the box of dog feces, now sealed, labeled, and displayed in court like a piece of modern art. The moment Karen realized it was all being entered into the official record, I saw her flinch. Just a little, but enough. Her lawyer tried to pivot halfway through the proceedings, claimed she was suffering from high stress, that she'd lost track of what was hers, that maybe, just maybe, the HOA had given her too much responsibility. Right. Because the logical response to burnout is to raid people's porches like it's Black Friday. What killed her case ultimately wasn't just the video or the testimonies, it was the pattern. The prosecutor laid it out in a timeline on a screen that spanned the courtroom wall. Each date, each theft, each neighborhood camera hit, each victim. The thefts were organized, calculated, repetitive. No signs of confusion or accident. No notes to delivery services, just clean grabs and disappearance. By the end of the second week, the jury barely looked at her. The final blow came when the police showed photos of the garage, dozens of open boxes, personal items, even a stash of stolen medication, including a package of insulin with someone else's name still visible on the label. Karen had kept everything. Like trophies. Her attorney asked for a deal. The judge, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s with a reputation for hating property crime, wasn't having it. The verdict, guilty on multiple counts of felony mail theft, criminal possession of stolen property, and assaulting an officer. The sentence, 4.5 years in state prison. She didn't cry, didn't scream. She just sat there, her mouth slightly open like someone had unplugged her. Linda squeezed my hand in the gallery. My wife gripped my shoulder. It wasn't joy I felt. It was clarity. The noise was gone. The threat was gone. And for the first time since moving into that neighborhood, I felt like I could exhale. We weren't done yet. There was still the civil suit, but we'd won the first war. And Karen, she was finally where she belonged. 3 months after the sentencing, we were back in court, but this time in a much quieter, less dramatic setting. No cameras, no jury, just a civil hearing to resolve the lawsuit we'd filed on behalf of the victims. The mood was different. We weren't there to watch someone fall. We were there to reclaim what she'd taken. Karen, now in an orange jumpsuit and shackled at the ankles, looked smaller. She sat silently beside a court-appointed attorney. Her original counsel had dropped her the moment the criminal verdict came down. She didn't speak, didn't look up, not once. Andrea Brooks, our attorney, was surgical. She presented a compiled list of losses from all plaintiffs, $30,000 from me alone, mostly due to stolen electronics, tools, and custom electrical components. $20,000 from neighbors, $9,000 in legal costs and fees. Each item logged, traced, verified. Each claim backed by delivery confirmations, photos, receipts. The judge didn't take long. Karen was ordered to pay restitution, $27,000 directly to me, $20,000 split among the other victims, and the remaining $9,000 to cover court costs. The judge added a condition. If she failed to begin repayment after release, liens would be placed on her property and pension, if she had any left by then. Either way, she'd carry the debt like a shadow. After the hearing, I stepped outside with Linda and a few of the neighbors who had joined the suit. The air smelled like rain again, clean, cool, forgiving. Linda leaned on her cane and patted my shoulder. "Feels lighter, doesn't it?" I nodded. "Took long enough," she smiled. "Justice usually does." Later that week, I replaced the camera on my porch with a newer model, one with full wide-angle coverage and a solar backup. I wasn't expecting trouble, but I also wasn't going to be caught off guard again. That same afternoon, I hung something just above the mailbox, a small plaque made of polished cedar engraved in black letters. "Steal from me. End up on camera. Or worse." Neighbors started using our yard as a shortcut again, this time with permission. A few of them brought gifts for my son. Linda got a brand new tablet from us, delivered in person, not by mail. We also arranged for a local landscaping crew to stop by her place twice a month. My treat. She'd done more than just record a video. She helped bring down a predator in pearls. HOA leadership changed drastically. Dale didn't last long. Too soft-spoken. Eventually, a new board was elected, one that prioritized actual community over Karen-style authoritarianism. I wasn't interested in joining, but I attended every meeting. And when someone brought up installing community parcel lockers to prevent future thefts, I voted yes. Life settled, packages arrived, and stayed put. The porch became what it was always meant to be, just a porch, a place for deliveries, not battles, a place where I could watch my son play with sidewalk chalk and not wonder if someone was creeping by while I wasn't looking. Justice had been served, but more than that, order had been restored, and Karen Lorraine would have 4.5 years and a hefty civil judgment to think about what it cost her.